to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about Death in Blackpool, written by Alan Barnes. This is the first story in the 4th season of the 8th Doctor adventures in the Lucy Miller era, featuring Paul McGann, of course, as the 8th Doctor, and Sheridan Smith playing the companion Lucy Miller. This is actually her sort of, kind of, not really departure story. It gets a lot of confusing. I'll go a bit more detail at the end of the video, but this is where she leaves the TARDIS. This is her last time as a regular companion. But that's not the only important aspect of this story. This is a Christmas special. Specifically, it's a Big Finish Christmas special. Now, for most of you out there would be familiar with New Who Christmas specials. During the years of 2005 all the way up to the end of 2017, Doctor Who would have had a special movie-length episode on Christmas Day. And usually they were heavily criticised, and one of the main aspects is that they were really light, they were really soft, upbeat, fluff essentially. Nothing really gritty about them, especially during the Stephen Moffat era, where it felt like Christmas was forced down your throat. His first Christmas special, The Christmas Carol, which I'll talk more when I get to The Christmas Carol, had the theme of Christmas and happy and joy and all that shoved down your throat. Big Finish, on the other hand, take a completely 180 on the idea. Big Finish's Christmas specials, or at least from what I can gather, this is from information from second-hand sources, as well as me listening to this story, they are bleak, dark, depressing, and messed up adventures, with this one being easily, by far, the most disturbing Doctor Who story that I've tackled on the marathon so far. And we've tackled over 250 stories at this point. That's messed up. That's really messed up. So, yeah. And as well to all of this other information, this is also the end of a loose trilogy featuring the idea of Auntie Pat, Lucy's auntie, who she has met in 2 other occasions in the stories Horror of Glam and The Zygon Who Fell to Earth, which, spoilers for that story, because you're going to have to spoil it for this story, Auntie Pat dies at the end of that story, and it turns out that the Auntie Pat that Lucy remembers as a kid was actually a Zygon duplicate, who was actually Pat's husband, who's taken the form to try and basically live, keep the memory of Auntie Pat alive. So yeah, that's it concludes with that. There's also Santa Claus in it. I don't know. This story is also extremely popular. Everyone I've heard that have talked about this story absolutely love it. And I do too. It's amazing. It's dark, bleak, depressing, just grim, morbid. And I can't help but fall in love with it. It's just hits me at every note, and that ending, that goddamn ending is so powerful because this story is so goddamn bleak. So anyway, let's go on to the covers. This is the official Big Finish CD cover. Pretty pretty great image. I really like the imagery of Lucy silhouetted with this like weird beaming light representing her part of the story, as well as we got a very confused looking Paul McGann, which is actually a shot from the movie, and I know exactly which shot it's from. It's the scene when he's checking his weight in Grace's house. You can see it now, can you? His face? Yeah, really funny. So there you go. And like always with these Big Finish CD covers, I've printed out my own DVD cover. This is actually one I've stolen, at least the art anyway, is stolen from DeviantArt, but I've changed, the only difference is I've changed the logo of Paul McGann's face there, so it fits better on my shelf, as it's the old TV movie logo of Paul McGann on it, so it fits better on my shelf. I could have, like a few of these Paul McGann ones, I could have done a better job if I decided to do the art myself. This was quick, just like a really quick, looked online, found one, took it, and decided to put it up. But I do plan on making this better. So this is the image. I can't see if you can tell on the screen there, but you can see his zygon's face in the background. You've got Lucy Miller there, really cool. That's just some really cool artwork. And then we got the spine, which is really nice, if anyone's interested. That's our catchphrase of this segment. And we got the back. And really funny, it's got Paul McGann's face just like, this doesn't look right. I'm Paul McGann. Just imagine he says that. So, we've tackled the covers, we've tackled all the stuff that we need to do beforehand. So let's get on to the story. So the story starts off with the Doctor taking Lucy to modern day Earth, or at least modern day for this story. Just to go on a little bit of a tangent here, I really feel like the Paul McGann's modern era should be the mid to late 90s, as that's like the era I think of thing. But with these Big Finish stories, because they treat him as their main Doctor, Lucy comes from 2006, or at least this story is set in 2008, with this story being released in 2009. So, that's just a little bit of a tangent, where they actually have a nice little callback to Horror of Glam Rock, where they actually land in, or at least around, the same cafe in which that story is located, only now in modern times and not in the 70s. So they have like a cafe there, and Lucy talks about enjoying Christmas. It's Christmas, and Lucy's talking about how excited she is to meet up with all her family, and she gets excited. Some of her dialogue here seems a bit more younger than I imagine Lucy to be. I believe somewhere she's stated of being 19, but there's some scenes in this dialogue in this story, not to take away anything from it, it's just something really odd that I noticed. But dialogue makes her feel a lot younger than she does in this story. It's really bizarre, especially how this issue isn't really part of previous audio dramas that I've listened to anyway. So, I don't know. It's not even a criticism, it's just a very strange thing that I've noticed. I'll talk about a little bit more detail on that when I get to a certain scene. Here they reunite with Auntie Pat now as a older woman in her, I believe like in her 50s or 60s, and Lucy is actually shocked to see how aged she is compared to the last time she recognises her from this time. Now, of course, Lucy doesn't know, but this isn't the real the real Patricia, or at least this is not the one that we've met in Horror of Glam Rock and in The Zygon Who Fell to Earth. This is actually Haygarth, his actual name is. I called him Hogarth in the previous video. That was actually a mistake. It's actually Haygarth. But the Doctor does know, and we get this really great and intense, not intense, but really some great dialogue when the Doctor decides to talk to Pat and is like, you should tell her, you should reveal yourself, you were the Auntie-Pat that she grew up with, and if she cares about you, she really did care for you when she was a little girl, she would still love you despite the fact you're an alien zygon shapeshifter who took the form of her dead auntie. And it gets like a little bit complicated in terms of like the emotional impact. You can hear Lucy in the background as she's interacting with like the cafe in the background and trying to get a panini, a little fun moment. But I really like the scene in which, in this bit where Pat is talking to the 8th Doctor and she says something like, you could have easily told her yourself. In fact, you could have said as soon as I transformed into Auntie-Pat, you could have easily done, but you didn't. You are as part guilty in this than I am. And then we get into scenes about our actual story. As we see a cabbie driver taking someone to a specific location, and it seemed, I don't know, something about it seems really off, and the person in his passenger seat seems to not want to go with him, so that's really strange. But then it turns out this the passenger is actually a shapeshifter, a Pacific shapeshifter, one who is a zygon but isn't a zygon anymore. We later learn in the story that this is a I can't remember the word they used. It was a really stupid word, zygnog or something like that, which is a zygon which broke one of the founding laws of zygon culture, to shapeshift into another zygon. So they basically set this thing where it cannot transform back into a zygon. It must now take the forms of others. And we quickly learn that this creature, I'm just going to call it the zygon, is actually after Auntie-Pat for reasons which we'll get into. And he becomes our main villain as he takes over the cabbie driver and tracks down Lucy, Pat and the Doctor to this cafe, and actually has a very sinister interaction with Lucy after she notices that he's having like 7 or 8 cups of sugar in his tea. Then comes through the door is probably one of my favourite characters in this story. Santa Claus. Not just any Santa Claus, but an alcoholic, bummed up Santa who is constantly drunk and is who it's clearly supposed to be some sort of like homeless man who believes he's Santa, and he's introduced by going up to our characters very abruptly and asking, have they seen his reindeers? And the Doctor actually like lists the reindeers and actually states at one point he's met them. I don't know if that's a tie-in to any other story, but that's just this character. He seems to get in the story. I'm trying to think of a character the most I can think of that's similar to this character. He has no real bearing on the emotional and narrative aspects of the plot, but he always seems to find himself in the situation. It's hilarious. And until the very end, everybody just calls him Santa at the start because he's that's the only name they know him by. But after he seems to be not granting people's wishes, but seems to be spot on about certain things, people start kind of believing he's Santa. It's really hilarious. And a little bit morbid as Lucy proclaims that she's going to take him to Blackpool to go and see, to try and find the reindeers. But in reality, she's actually going to try and take him to a shelter or somewhere to be looked after so he doesn't harm himself or do something rational. Now, we get a scene then in which Lucy and the Doctor splits up, with Lucy taking Santa and the Doctor taking Pat, just to wander about. Doctor and Auntie Pat start talking about wait, how can you be aging? You're a zygon print. You shouldn't be aging. And Auntie Pat actually starts having an injury in her hips, which the Doctor proclaims zygons have no hip bones or something. And it clicks then that because Auntie Pat has been stuck as a human for so much of her life that her cells as a zygon are dying, and she's basically got a terminal illness. Pat basically proclaims that she knew this was going to happen as soon as she transformed permanently as Auntie Pat. And whilst this is going on, before I even talk about what happens next, I need to talk about a little scene in which they're all in a car and they seem to be getting bumped into and nodded by this guy in a yellow car. Now, back to where we were, Lucy and Santa are actually trying to look around for whatever, when all of a sudden you hear a car hit someone. And suddenly, cutting back to the Doctor and Auntie Pat, we hear someone running towards them. It's Santa, saying he's dreadfully sorry. He is so sorry, but there was an accident and Lucy was involved. She got hit by a car. That's one of the messed up moments of the story. The story deals with the ideas of loved ones in a death or death-like situation, and that's like the main theme of the story. So the majority of the story has Lucy in a hospital, just like basically in a very, and this scene takes, apart from the fact it's Santa Claus is in it, or at least a homeless man taking up the mantle of Santa Claus. This scene is played completely straight-faced, and I absolutely 1000% adore this aspect. I love how when Lucy wakes up, she's very casual about it. She's got all these tubes in her arms, she's got all these needles, and she's like, ew, that's disgusting, get me off me. Now, please, I need to get out of here and stuff. But she can't seem to hear anything. Or at least, she can't seem to hear all the doctors and what they're saying. From her point of view, it seems like everyone's just standing silently. More on that later. On the Doctor and Pat's side, on the other hand, we have this fantastic moment, probably one of my favourite moments, when the Doctor is basically like, right, this is my fault. Lucy is one of my greatest friends. I'm going to get the TARDIS, take it into her room, steal Lucy's body from the hospital, and go into the future where she can get better better healthcare. In a great little moment, he basically proclaims it's like that modern day humans are primitives. There's a great moment where the Eighth Doctor's like, primitives which have got great intentions and are doing the very best they can, but they're still primitive compared to the healthcare and the stuff that I can provide by taking her from the future. Pat is basically screaming at the Doctor. It's like, because she's all upset and stuff. It's like, what if you're too late? What if when you get there, Lucy's dead? What if you never get the chance to say your final words? But the Doctor's like, this is stupid. This is preposterous. I have a time machine. I'll already be there by the time you see me head towards the TARDIS. You'll see. Don't worry about it. And so Pat breaks down in tears and proclaims she knows who did this. She knows who killed Lucy. Or at least tried to kill Lucy. From Lucy's point of view, she seems to have gone into an astral projection form, where she's basically a ghost and nobody can see her, but she can see everyone else. She also seems to hear other people, some people, but not everybody. There's here where she meets the cabbie driver again. This time going under a mantle of... He basically pretends that he's like this essence of life and death. And he basically shows Lucy about all her new abilities and stuff. And he basically proclaims that she can only hear some people, because in this state, in this new sense of reality, she can hear people who are nearly about to die. They are at the near end of their life, at least in their timeline. Whether they got illnesses or not is very irrelevant, which is much more upsetting when Lucy realises that she can hear Auntie Pat. Auntie Pat is destined to die. And this leads into then one of the most messed up, one of the grimmest, depressing, heart-wrenching moments in the entire story. Lucy originally is wandering around the hospital, originally a bit depressed about this whole new abilities, but testing them out, having a little bit of fun with them. Well, then she goes into a room of a dying man, and the cabbie driver basically proclaims that this man is an innocent man. He's done nothing wrong, but he's going to die on this Christmas, leaving 3 innocent children to care, where they will probably end up having miserable, depressing life, and that Lucy can become their guardian angel if she allows him to take her soul, and basically tries to guilt trip her when she refuses, believing first that this is some sort of hallucination. He's basically like, yes, if this is something that you could do, you could help those kids, but you choosing not to because of your selfishness. You're selfish, you are greedy, and you are just putting those poor kids in misery. You could be their guardian angel, but you refuse to because you are this pathetic girl. Why are you still fighting? Just give up, give in. Give your soul to me so you can become this guardian angel for these kids. And it really gets Lucy down. That moment is so depressing, but yet so real. I mean, despite Christmas supposed to be a magical or wonderful time, people still die on Christmas. The world doesn't stop being miserable because we want to celebrate for one day. It's full of misery and death, just like any other day of the week. Of the year, shall I say, better let. You know, it's a fundamental of reality that we don't really think about. Something which the new series tries to hide under the rug. It's, no, it's Christmas, have fun! Here's Santa with sleeping aliens. Here's the Titanic. Here's the Christmas Carol, but with Doctor Who characters. No, this story is going, right, we're tackling Christmas, but we're going to show you the realness of Christmas. Now, back at Auntie Pat and the Doctor, Auntie Pat basically proclaims that she was being in contact with this zygon, whatever she calls it, and he was after, this zygon was after Auntie Pat's bit of technology, which combined with his own technology would combine and make a new machine that could allow them to transform their bodies. The given into this is that he would take her body and she would then become someone else, like as in never, not a zygon. But she kind of got scared, so she stole his technology, hoping to fix herself, but apparently it failed, and this creature's now trying to go after her as revenge, and she basically proclaims that these zygnogs, they can actually go into people's dreams, into their subconscious, and the way that they take over people's appearance in this form is by taking people in their unconscious and making them agree. This is why it targets depressed and anxious people first, the weak, an easy target for it. Lucy is an easy, guilty target for it. And so they track down the body of this creature, and Doctor and Auntie Pat basically proclaim, right, we know what we need to do. We need to knock one of ourselves out, go into this astral projection form, and make some sort of deal for Lucy's soul. However, there's something he didn't realise. Lucy's astral projection is in the room, but she can still hear Auntie Pat. And Auntie Pat, in bursts of tears, is like, we can't do this, because if we do this, Doctor, she will know that I am actually a zygon that took over her real aunt's body after she died in the 1980s, and she would know that you knew as well. Lucy hears all this, broken, distraught, full bursting in tears, emotionally wrecked, but still doesn't give in to the creature. Sheridan Smith, Lucy Miller, one of the best companions up there. And this scene is so heartbreaking because we learned to become heavily invested in the Auntie Pat story. We love this new version of Auntie Pat, this kind of the typical auntie that we all know and love. We learn to love with Lucy, and the Doctor is his dilemma in this, in which he kind of knows that this is the auntie that Lucy grew up with, but also as well, he doesn't like keeping a secret from her. It's just all around is just not only perfect, amazing, well written, well acted, just overall amazing, but it's also dark, depressing, and absolutely miserable. So the Doctor decides, right, it's going to be him. He's going to knock himself out, put himself in an astral projection form, and take this creature, give it a deal in exchange for Lucy's body. But Pat knows that it won't make a deal with the Doctor. It'll take Lucy's soul unless it gets what it wants. Pat. So she actually, I want to say knocked out, but then that would be really confusing because she knocks the Doctor out in a way which he can't summon his astral projection form, to which Auntie Pat then makes a deal with, well, tries to make a deal with this creature. And originally he agrees, and so they basically start combining, so he takes her body. But before he technically kills her, he proclaims, before you go, I just want to know, when I'm in your body, I'm going to take and kill Lucy Miller. You have lost. You have angered me, you've pissed me off that much. I'm going to mess up your life after your death. And Auntie Pat dies screaming in agony. That's just morbid. So she wakes up in Auntie Pat's body, and the Doctor does this little quiz about music, which kind of gives it that this is not the real Auntie Pat, and he knows. However, when this creature tries to get up in Pat's body, he struggles. He can't. He's dying because he didn't realise that Auntie Pat was dying. And the Doctor is very sentimental about this. He's like, let me hold your hand, let me sit with you, let me stay here until the passing. Do you have a name? What's your name? And the creature's like, I'm Larkin and stuff. It's like, I'll be with you until the end. What you did was wrong, but I understand why you did it. You were desperate, you needed survival, and I'll be here with you when you die. It is wrong for you to do all this, but it's also wrong that you have to live in such a lonely, depressing world. And I will be here this Christmas at your passing, and I will see you, and I will not leave you at your side. That is how the Eighth Doctor is. That is Paul McGann's at his best, easily his best performance that I've ever heard of Paul McGann. That scene is so bleeding powerful, and I absolutely love it. So, taking Pat's body, this creature also dies with Pat inside Pat's body. Lucy wakes up from her coma, and when the nurse is like, don't worry, we're getting the doctor, it's like, the doctor? No, I don't want the doctor. That doctor can stay away from me as much as possible. Showing how distorted she is. We later cut to a scene on the beach, which is her departure, her scene in which she says goodbye to the doctor. And my God, bring some tissues when you listen to this story. It is heart-wrenching. It is emotionally impactful. Sure, it's a bit heavy-handed, and sure, it's just like a lot of people's issue with the new series. It's over-dramatic. I say over-dramatic, it's full of people, full of actors like crying their hearts out, and melodramatic, that's the word I was looking for. But because of the story that we've had, it really bleeding works. And the Doctor basically is kind of like, I'm really sorry about this. I will never lie to you again. Sure, I lied to you before, but we're all flammable. We're all... none of us are perfect. Sure, I've made mistakes, and I probably will make mistakes, but I'll try to do better for you. And Lucy's like, no, you shouldn't be like that. Or at least not to me. I've had this image in my head that you were this perfect being. You are the Doctor. Yeah, you're not a superhero, you're not this perfect being, but you technically are in some sense. You are technically a superhero. You've got this time machine that takes you anywhere and anything. You can change your face. You're a Time Lord. You have a different aspect to time and senses to your average human. And from Lucy's point of view, she's grown up idolising the Doctor. She's, and that this betrayal, this lie, she can't trust the Doctor anymore. And this is not someone she wants to travel with. And she basically proclaims, like, right, before the summer, I'm going to go travel in America and stuff by myself, without you, Doctor. it's time that we part ways. And that's how the story ends. Merry Christmas, everybody. I just realised I didn't talk about the scene I was talking about earlier about Lucy being very very young to what her actress is. It's the scene. There's a scene in which they go knocking on her own door, and then they realise they got the times mixed up, and this is actually Christmas she's been to. When they're talking to the other Santa, it turns out Lucy still actually leaves cookies outside, mince pies outside for Santa. As a 19-year-old, does anyone do that? I don't know, I just thought that scene made her seem a lot younger than she should do. But apart from that, very odd. So anyway, that's the conclusion to Death in Blackpool. Overall, it is a fantastic piece of media. It is well written, well acted, and very little to complain about. It's emotionally wrecking. It is everything you want from a great Doctor Who story. And this has actually taken my place as my favourite 8th Doctor adventure. This is actually the first time I've listened to it for this marathon. And I just had such a connection with this story. But I will say it's not for everyone. This story sees Christmas in a very bleak, depressing and realistic point of view, which I know a lot of people might not be for everybody, especially how the past few years have been so depressing. It's not a light story that you can just pick up and listen to. It's dark, it's depressing, it deals with death and betrayal, but yeah, there you go. So before I actually end the video, I thought I'd just talk a little bit about the series afterwards of the 8th Doctor Adventures, because I'm going to be skipping a lot. And basically explain what I was on about this being Lucy's sort of departing story. For the rest of season 4, the Doctor actually teams up with a new companion, a failed actress who won a competition to actually become the Doctor's companion. And they have a few little adventures until a 2-part adventure featuring the Ice Warriors and the Meddling Monk sees the Doctor reunite with Lucy, which turns out that she actually has been travelling with the monk for a while. Whilst in this story the Doctor and Lucy reunite, the monk actually takes the Doctor's companion at that point and shows her all of the consequences of the Doctor's actions, and so Lucy actually becomes the Doctor's companion again for a very short time, and as well as the monk gaining this other companion. This then leads into the culmination of season 4's finale, which is considered by many as one of the best audio dramas out there, which I sadly haven't listened to. A 2-parter, part 1 being called Lucy Miller, and part 2 called To the Death. I know nothing about it apart from the fact there's Daleks in it, and that it's a very, very popular story. And that ends the 8th Doctor Adventures, which kicks off then the box sets, starting with Dark Eyes Volume 1, leading into Volume 4, which then goes into Doom Coalition Volume 1 to 4. Then I believe it's Ravenous Volumes 1 to 4. Then it's Stranded 1 to 4. Between all these box sets, we have the Time War box set, which features the 8th Doctor during the Time War. In the other box sets, I believe Dark Eyes was actually released prior to Big Finish getting the rights to the new series. They did tease the fact that there's got to be a massive war between the Time Lords and the Daleks. So basically the box set era is essentially leading up to the final era of the Eighth Doctor, the Time War era. But also in those stories, he gets a new jacket and a new look, and he gets a new sonic screwdriver. I like the sonic screwdriver, but I'm not too keen on the look personally. It doesn't feel right to me personally. And I'm going to be skipping all of those because A, I didn't have time to get invested in all those stories for this marathon, and B, those box sets are expensive as hell. So we're going to go straight into the Time War element of the marathon. In fact, it'll be the last audio drama from the Eighth Doctor story we'll be tackling. So there you go, that's the rest of the Eighth Doctor adventures as far as we know. So join me next time where the Eighth Doctor goes into the Time War and features the new monsters, the Sontarans. You want to know what that means? Well, you'll have to watch the next video. So join me next time for the Sontaran ordeal, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!